I'm Michael Chen, and I'm 36 years old. Last month, I discovered my parents had secretly borrowed $47,382 from my credit cards over 18 months to fund my younger brother's art career, while telling me they were facing foreclosure. The confrontation that followed at our family barbecue exposed 20 years of lies and changed everything forever. But before I tell you what happened when I finally stood up to them, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below, and if this family financial nightmare sounds familiar, please hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, what happens when I finally present my evidence to the entire extended family might shock you as much as it did them. Growing up in Sacramento as the eldest son of David and Linda Chen wasn't the stable, loving household most people assumed when they saw our perfect Christmas cards. From my earliest memories, there was an unspoken hierarchy where my younger brother Jason occupied the golden throne while I served as the family's emotional and financial safety net. The pattern started early and persisted relentlessly. When I was 14 and Jason was 10, I won the regional science fair with a robotics project I'd spent months perfecting. My parents attended the ceremony but spent the entire event on their phones coordinating Jason's soccer tournament logistics for the following weekend. Your brother needs our full attention right now, Dad explained as we drove home, my blue ribbon forgotten on the dashboard. You're naturally gifted, you don't need as much support. This philosophy shaped every major milestone in our family. During my high school valedictorian speech, my parents sat in the back row, whispering about Jason's upcoming middle school graduation plans. When I received a full scholarship to UC Berkeley for business administration, the celebration dinner lasted exactly 30 minutes before shifting focus to Jason's struggling algebra grades and how we needed to hire him a tutor. The financial expectations began during my sophomore year of college. Despite having a full scholarship, I worked two part-time jobs to cover living expenses and save money. Meanwhile, my parents fully funded Jason's private art lessons, expensive supplies, and summer camps. You're so responsible with money, Mom would say during our weekly phone calls. Jason's more of a creative spirit, he needs different kinds of support. After graduating summa cum laude with a business degree, I moved to San Francisco and started as a junior marketing associate at Peterson and Associates, a mid-sized consulting firm. The entry-level salary barely covered rent in the city, but I was determined to build my career without family assistance. I lived in a studio apartment in the Mission District, rode public transportation everywhere, and ate ramen noodles 4 nights a week to make ends meet. Jason, meanwhile, had enrolled in art school in Portland with full parental funding. Every month brought new expenses, specialized equipment, study abroad programs, gallery submission fees. It's an investment in his future, Dad would explain during my brief visits home. Art is unpredictable, he needs our support while he establishes himself. By age 28, my persistence had paid off professionally. I'd been promoted to marketing director at Peterson and Associates with a salary that finally allowed comfortable living. I moved to a one-bedroom apartment in Soma, bought my first car, and even started contributing to retirement accounts. Financial independence felt incredible after years of careful budgeting and sacrifice. My relationship with my parents during this period remained complicated but manageable. Weekly phone calls centered around Jason's artistic pursuits and my parents' various minor crises. Monthly visits home typically involved subtle requests for small financial help. A restaurant bill here, a car repair there, always presented as temporary borrowing between family members. I told myself these requests were normal family support, especially after my parents helped with my college textbooks years earlier. The amount seemed reasonable, $200 for groceries during a tight month, $500 for urgent dental work, $800 for Jason's art supplies when his student loan was delayed. Each request came with detailed explanations and promises of prompt repayment that somehow never materialized. Last Christmas exemplified our family dynamic perfectly. I brought my girlfriend Sarah, a talented architect I'd been dating for 8 months. She'd spent weeks selecting thoughtful gifts for everyone, including a beautiful coffee table book about California landscapes for my parents and professional art supplies for Jason. Meanwhile, Jason arrived empty-handed but somehow became the center of attention when he announced his acceptance into a prestigious graduate program. The entire holiday conversation revolved around Jason's MFA program costs, his thesis project plans, and his exciting future in contemporary sculpture. When Sarah mentioned my recent promotion to senior marketing director, my parents offered polite congratulations before immediately asking whether my new salary meant I could help with Jason's graduate school expenses. That evening, Sarah quietly asked me about the family dynamics she'd observed. "Does Jason ever ask about your life?" she wondered. "It seems like every conversation becomes about him or what you can provide." Her outside perspective highlighted patterns I'd unconsciously accepted as normal, planting seeds of doubt about our family's emotional balance. 3 months ago, those seeds of doubt began growing into full-blown suspicion when I noticed discrepancies in my credit card statements. Small charges appeared regularly. art supply stores in Portland, expensive restaurants, online purchases I hadn't made. Initially, I attributed these to fraud and prepared to contact my credit card companies, but something nagged at me about the timing and locations. The charges coincided with Jason's social media posts showing new equipment and gallery dinners. The restaurants matched ones he'd tagged in Instagram stories. The online purchases aligned with expensive art supplies he'd shown off in posts. I called my credit card company to investigate the suspicious activity. After providing security verification, the customer service representative explained that an authorized user named Jason Chen had been added to my account 8 months earlier. The request came through your parents' phone number, she noted, with all the proper security information. My stomach dropped as the implications became clear. Someone in my family had access to my personal information and had been using my credit without permission. The running total of unauthorized charges over 8 months amounted to $23,847, nearly half my annual savings. That evening, I confronted my parents with this discovery during what I intended to be a routine check-in call. There must be some mistake, Mom said when I explained about the unauthorized credit card usage. We would never do anything like that without asking you first. Dad took a different approach, immediately shifting to offense. If someone used your credit card, you should be calling the police, not accusing your family. Their responses felt rehearsed and deflective, increasing my suspicion rather than providing reassurance. Over the following week, I conducted deeper investigation into my financial records. I discovered additional unauthorized access across multiple accounts, savings withdrawals, credit line increases, even changes to my mailing address for certain statements. The sophisticated nature of this financial manipulation suggested careful planning rather than opportunistic fraud. I hired a private financial investigator to trace the money trail, something I never imagined needing within my own family. Within 10 days, Sarah Martinez from Secure Finance Analytics had compiled a comprehensive report showing systematic financial exploitation dating back 18 months. The evidence was overwhelming and heartbreaking. My parents had used my personal information to access credit cards, request cash advances, and redirect financial statements to their address. The total amount of unauthorized usage reached $47,382, including interest charges and fees from accounts I didn't know existed in my name. Most devastating was discovering how the money had been spent. Rather than genuine family emergencies, as I'd been told, the funds supported Jason's graduate school lifestyle. Expensive studio rent in Portland's arts district, high-end art supplies, gallery submission fees, and regular dining at upscale restaurants. My credit had essentially funded my brother's artistic pursuit while I believed my parents were struggling financially. Sarah's report included detailed transaction records showing Jason's involvement in the scheme. He'd used credit cards linked to my accounts for personal purchases, often the same day my parents called requesting emergency loans for completely different reasons. The coordination required sophisticated deception spanning multiple family members. Armed with irrefutable evidence, I scheduled a meeting with Dr. Patricia Reeves, a therapist specializing in family financial abuse. During our first session, she helped me understand the psychological manipulation I'd experienced for decades. This pattern started with conditioning you to be the family's financial solution, she explained, reviewing the timeline I'd provided. The small requests trained you to say yes automatically, making larger exploitation possible. Your parents positioned themselves as victims while systematically accessing your resources. Dr. Reeves introduced me to terms I'd never heard but immediately recognized: parentification, financial enmeshment, and scapegoat versus golden child dynamics. My role as the responsible older son had been weaponized to support Jason's position as the family's creative darling, with my financial resources serving as the bridge between their expectations and reality. The following weeks brought physical and emotional symptoms I'd never experienced before. Sleep became elusive as I replayed years of manipulative conversations, recognizing techniques I'd previously attributed to normal family concern. My appetite disappeared, leading to rapid weight loss that colleagues noticed and questioned. At work, my concentration suffered dramatically. During important client presentations, I'd find myself mentally calculating the true cost of my family's deception rather than focusing on marketing strategies. My assistant, Rebecca, eventually asked if everything was all right after I missed 2 consecutive deadline commitments. Meanwhile, my parents continued their normal pattern of weekly check-ins, asking about my life while weaving in subtle requests for financial assistance. Jason's thesis project requires specialized materials that are quite expensive, Mom mentioned during one call. We're hoping our successful son might help his brother achieve his artistic dreams. The casual manipulation in that statement, positioning my financial contribution as inevitable while framing Jason's expenses as family investment, crystallized the toxic dynamic I'd enabled for years. I realized that confronting this pattern would require more than individual conversations. It needed public accountability with family witnesses present. I began planning for the family's annual Memorial Day barbecue, traditionally held at my parents' house with extended family attendance. This gathering would provide the perfect setting for presenting my evidence with multiple witnesses present, making denial or gaslighting more difficult to maintain. 2 weeks before the barbecue, I received an unexpected call from my father. "We've been thinking about Jason's graduate school expenses," he began without preamble. "With your promotion and everything, we thought you might want to contribute to his MFA program. It's only $18,000 per semester, and it would mean so much to the family." The audacity of requesting additional money while already secretly accessing my credit accounts left me speechless. After several seconds of stunned silence, I managed to respond that I needed time to consider their request, though internally I knew this conversation had sealed my resolve to confront them publicly. That evening, I called Sarah, my girlfriend, to explain what had happened and my plans for the family gathering. "I'm going to present all the evidence at the barbecue," I told her, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and determination. "No more private conversations where they can manipulate and gaslight me. Everyone will see the truth." Sarah listened carefully before offering her complete support. "I'll be there with you," she said firmly. "What they've done is not just wrong, it's illegal. You deserve family members who see that clearly." Her unwavering loyalty contrasted sharply with the conditional love I'd experienced from my biological family, strengthening my conviction that healthy relationships were possible. The night before the barbecue, I organized all evidence into a comprehensive presentation. Credit card statements highlighted with Jason's purchases, financial investigator reports, timelines showing coordination between emergency requests and actual spending, and copies of applications for credit cards I'd never authorized. The documentation filled a thick manila folder that would serve as my shield against inevitable denial and deflection. I also prepared emotionally for various family reactions. Dr. Reeves had warned me that confronting systematic financial abuse often triggers desperate responses from perpetrators, including attempts to turn other family members against the victim. I steeled myself for tears, anger, denial, and character assassination, focusing on my goal of establishing firm boundaries rather than seeking apology or acknowledgement. Memorial Day morning dawned unusually warm for San Francisco. I dressed carefully in a crisp button-down shirt and dark jeans, wanting to appear composed and professional rather than emotional or vindictive. The manila folder containing my evidence sat on the passenger seat as I drove across the Bay Bridge towards Sacramento, its weight feeling both substantial and liberating. Arriving at my parents' house in the fabulous 40s neighborhood, I noticed the familiar scene of extended family preparation. Uncle Robert arranging lawn chairs, Aunt Carol setting up the buffet table, cousins playing in the backyard while their parents gossiped about work and neighborhood drama. The smell of barbecue sauce and lighter fluid mixed with jasmine from my mother's garden, creating the sensory backdrop for countless family gatherings throughout my childhood. My parents greeted me with enthusiastic hugs, their behavior perfectly normal despite the financial crimes I'd discovered. Jason arrived shortly after me, driving a new Subaru Outback that I recognized from my credit card statements as a recent unauthorized purchase. He seemed genuinely happy to see me, asking about work and complimenting my recent Instagram posts from a weekend trip with Sarah. For the first hour, everything proceeded according to traditional family barbecue protocol. Dad manned the grill while sharing stories about his latest home improvement projects. Mom circulated among relatives, ensuring everyone had drinks and appetizers. Jason entertained his young cousins with art projects, demonstrating the charming creativity that had always earned him family admiration. I participated in small talk while internally rehearsing my presentation, waiting for the optimal moment when everyone would be gathered and relaxed. The folder remained in my car, but my mental preparation felt solid after weeks of practice with Dr. Reeves and careful consideration of potential family reactions. As we transitioned from appetizers to the main meal, my father called everyone to gather around the patio table for his traditional Memorial Day toast. This annual ritual provided the perfect opening for my confrontation, as it naturally focused family attention on a single speaker with everyone present and seated. "Before Dad gives his toast," I said, standing and retrieving my folder from the car, "I have something important to share with everyone." The casual conversation quieted as relatives turned their attention toward me, sensing something unusual in my tone and body language. I returned to the patio where 15 family members, my parents, Jason, 4 aunts and uncles, and 6 cousins, sat around the extended dining table. The afternoon sun filtered through the maple trees, casting dappled shadows across faces that would soon reflect shock, anger, and divided loyalties. "I've discovered that my parents and Jason have been stealing money from me for 18 months, I announced calmly, opening the folder to reveal meticulously organized financial documents. "They've accessed my credit cards without permission, requested cash advances in my name, and used over $47,000 of my money to fund Jason's lifestyle while lying to me about family financial emergencies. The immediate silence felt thick enough to cut with a knife. Uncle Robert set down his beer bottle with unusual care, while Aunt Carol's fork remained suspended halfway to her mouth. My cousin Jennifer glanced between my parents and me with obvious confusion, trying to process the serious accusation disrupting what had been a lighthearted family gathering. Mom recovered first, her face shifting from shock to defensive anger. "Michael, this is completely inappropriate," she said, her voice tight with controlled fury. "We're having a family celebration, not a business meeting. Whatever misunderstanding you think exists can be discussed privately later." "There's no misunderstanding," I replied, pulling out the first set of credit card statements and spreading them across the table where everyone could see highlighted charges. "These are unauthorized purchases made by Jason using credit cards opened in my name. The security footage from art supply stores shows him making these transactions." Jason's face had gone pale, but he attempted a confused expression. "I don't understand what you're talking about, Mike. I've never used your credit cards for anything." His voice carried the same innocent tone that had deflected childhood accountability for broken windows and missing homework assignments. Dad stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the concrete patio. "I won't sit here and listen to our son make wild accusations against his family," he declared, his voice rising with each word. "Michael, you're obviously under stress from work or that girlfriend of yours. This paranoid behavior isn't like you." "Then explain this," I said, pulling out the financial investigator's report and reading directly from the summary. Jason Chen was added as an authorized user to 3 credit cards in Michael Chen's name on September 15th of last year. The request was made from telephone number 916-555-847, which is registered to David and Linda Chen at this address. Uncle Robert leaned forward to examine the documents, his expression shifting from confusion to concern. "Dave, is this true?" he asked, looking directly at my father. "Did you add Jason to Michael's accounts?" The question hung in the air while my parents exchanged glances that communicated volumes. Finally, Mom attempted damage control. "There may have been some misunderstanding about financial arrangements," she said carefully. "Michael has always been generous with family support, and we thought he'd approve of helping his brother through graduate school, without asking me." I countered, my voice remaining level despite my racing heart. "While telling me you were facing foreclosure and needed emergency loans for medical bills that were actually Jason's art supplies and restaurant meals." Aunt Carol gasped audibly, her hand flying to her chest. "Linda, you told us last month that you might lose the house," she said accusingly. "We were considering starting a family fund to help you. Were you lying about that too?" The revelation that my parents had been soliciting sympathy and potential financial support from extended family while secretly accessing my credit created a second wave of shock around the table. I watched as relatives began reassessing recent conversations and requests, recognizing manipulation techniques they'd previously attributed to genuine family crisis. Jason finally spoke, his voice cracking under pressure. "Mom, Dad, tell them this isn't true," he pleaded, looking desperately between our parents. "Tell them I didn't know about any credit cards." But his social media posts contradicted his claimed ignorance. I pulled out printed screenshots showing Jason's Instagram stories featuring expensive purchases on the exact dates of questionable credit card transactions. "Here's you showing off a $1,200 professional easel on March 15th, I said, sliding the image across the table. "And here's the charge on my credit card for the same amount at the same art store on the same day." The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable, shifting family attention from my accusations to my parents' increasingly frantic attempts at explanation. Mom began crying, but her tears seemed calculated rather than genuine, designed to evoke sympathy and deflect attention from the documented financial crimes. "After everything we've done for you," she sobbed, looking directly at me with wounded eyes. "How can you humiliate your family like this? We raised you, sacrificed for your education, and this is how you repay us? By airing private family matters in front of everyone." The manipulation attempt was so transparent that several relatives visibly recoiled. Cousin Jennifer, who worked as a nurse and dealt with family drama professionally, spoke up with surprising directness. "Aunt Linda, crying doesn't change the fact that you stole Michael's identity," she said firmly. "This isn't about repayment or family loyalty, this is about fraud." Dad made one final attempt to regain control of the narrative. "Michael has always been jealous of Jason's artistic talent," he announced, his voice carrying the authority he'd wielded throughout my childhood. "This is just another attempt to sabotage his brother's success because he can't stand not being the center of attention." The accusation might have worked 20 years earlier, but surrounded by documented evidence and supportive witnesses, it fell flat. Uncle Robert, who'd remained quiet during most of the confrontation, finally stood up and addressed my parents directly. "Dave, Linda, I've known you for 30 years, he said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "But what Michael is showing us isn't jealousy or family drama, it's identity theft and fraud. You could go to jail for this." His words carried the weight of professional experience as a retired police officer, giving them authority that silenced my parents' protests. The barbecue that had begun as a cheerful family gathering dissolved into shocked conversations and rapid departures. Several relatives approached me privately to offer support and apologize for not recognizing the family dynamic earlier. Aunt Carol hugged me tightly and whispered, "I'm proud of you for standing up to them. This took incredible courage." Jason sat alone at the picnic table, staring at the evidence scattered across its surface. As relatives prepared to leave, he approached me hesitantly. "Mike, I need you to know I didn't understand what they were doing," he said quietly. "I thought the money came from their savings. I feel sick knowing they used your credit without telling you." His words carried genuine remorse rather than the practiced manipulation I'd expected. We talked privately for 20 minutes while my parents remained inside, presumably planning their next approach. Jason revealed that our parents had controlled his finances completely, leading him to believe their support came from legitimate sources rather than stolen credit. "I want to make this right," he insisted, his eyes reflecting shame and determination. "I'll get a job and start paying you back immediately, and I'm done letting them manage my money or make decisions about my life." This conversation represented the first authentic connection Jason and I had shared since childhood, offering hope that our sibling relationship might survive our parents' toxic influence. Meanwhile, my parents had retreated to their bedroom, emerging only to announce that I was no longer welcome in their home. "If you want to destroy this family over money, then you're not our son anymore," Mom declared dramatically, though her threat felt hollow after the afternoon's revelations. I gathered my evidence and prepared to leave, feeling lighter despite the emotional devastation around me. For the first time in my adult life, I'd spoken truth about our family dynamic and received validation from witnesses who could no longer deny the patterns of favoritism and financial exploitation that had shaped my entire relationship with my parents. The immediate aftermath of the barbecue confrontation was both liberating and overwhelming. For days afterward, I received calls and texts from relatives expressing support and sharing their own observations about my parents' manipulative behavior that they'd previously dismissed or overlooked. Uncle Robert called that evening to offer professional advice about reporting the financial crimes to authorities. "You have solid evidence for identity theft and fraud charges," he explained. "The decision about prosecution is yours, but you should at least file a police report to protect yourself from future unauthorized access." I spent the following week consulting with a financial attorney who specialized in family financial abuse cases. Attorney Margaret Thompson reviewed my evidence and confirmed that criminal charges were definitely warranted, though she cautioned that prosecuting family members created additional emotional complications beyond typical fraud cases. "The choice is entirely yours," she explained during our consultation. "Some clients prefer civil recovery through family court, while others pursue full criminal prosecution. Either way, you'll need to close all compromised accounts and establish new credit monitoring to prevent further unauthorized access." The financial recovery process proved more complex than I'd anticipated. While I could dispute fraudulent charges and eventually recover most stolen funds, the damage to my credit score and the time required for resolution created ongoing stress and administrative burden that felt like continued victimization. More challenging was navigating family relationships in the aftermath of public confrontation. My parents launched a campaign among extended family and family friends, portraying me as an ungrateful son who destroyed family unity over minor financial misunderstandings. Some relatives bought their version of events, leading to uncomfortable conversations and lost relationships. However, the majority of family members supported my decision to confront the financial abuse. Aunt Carol organized a family meeting without my parents present, where relatives shared observations about concerning patterns they'd noticed but hadn't previously connected. Their validation felt incredible after years of questioning my own perceptions. Jason followed through on his commitment to independence and restitution. Within 2 weeks of the barbecue, he'd found a part-time job at a Portland gallery and arranged to move into shared housing to reduce his expenses. He also enrolled in financial literacy classes and began seeing a therapist to address the codependent relationship with our parents. "I realize now that letting them control my finances kept me from becoming a real adult," he explained during one of our weekly phone calls. "I'm 28 years old and I've never managed my own money or made independent decisions. That has to change." Our relationship gradually developed into something authentic for the first time since childhood. Without our parents' manipulation creating competition between us, we discovered shared interests and values that had been obscured by artificial rivalry. Jason's artistic perspective and my business experience created opportunities for collaboration that benefited both of us. Meanwhile, my romantic relationship with Sarah deepened significantly. Witnessing my family confrontation and supporting me through the aftermath revealed character traits she found admirable: courage, integrity, and commitment to truth despite personal cost. Her unwavering loyalty during family chaos contrasted sharply with the conditional love I'd received from my parents. You've become more confident and authentic since setting boundaries with your family, she observed 6 months after the barbecue. It's like you're finally free to be yourself instead of playing the role they assigned you. Her words reflected internal changes I'd experienced but hadn't fully recognized. Professional therapy with Dr. Reeves continued weekly, focusing on rebuilding my sense of self-worth independent of family approval or financial provision. We worked on recognizing manipulation techniques, establishing healthy boundaries in all relationships, and developing financial habits that prioritized my own goals rather than family expectations. The most significant change I see in you, Dr. Reeves noted during our 6-month review, is that you've stopped seeking external validation for your worth. You're making decisions based on your own values rather than trying to earn approval through achievement or generosity. 8 months after the confrontation, I received an unexpected letter from my mother. Unlike her previous communications filled with guilt and manipulation, this one contained what appeared to be genuine acknowledgement of wrongdoing and expression of regret. I realize now that we treated you unfairly and took advantage of your generosity, she wrote. The financial access was wrong, and I understand why you felt betrayed. I miss having you in our lives and hope we can work toward rebuilding our relationship on healthier terms. After discussing the letter with Dr. Reeves, I responded cautiously, outlining specific conditions for re-establishing contact, complete financial transparency, family therapy sessions, and acknowledgement of past patterns without minimization or blame shifting. I emphasized that rebuilding trust would require consistent actions over time, not just written apologies. My parents agreed to family therapy, though progress remained slow and often frustrating. Old patterns of manipulation and deflection emerged regularly, requiring constant vigilance and boundary reinforcement. However, their willingness to participate in professional sessions represented significant progress from their initial denial and blame. Currently, our relationship exists in a careful, limited capacity. Monthly supervised visits allow gradual rebuilding of trust while maintaining appropriate boundaries. Financial discussions remain completely off limits, and any attempt to revert to old manipulation patterns results in immediate consequences. Jason and I have developed a strong adult relationship based on mutual respect and shared growth. He's thriving as an independent artist while maintaining financial responsibility, and we've started collaborating on projects that combine his creative vision with my marketing expertise. Our monthly dinners have become highlights that I genuinely anticipate. Most importantly, I've learned to recognize and trust my own perceptions about relationships and family dynamics. The gaslighting and reality distortion I experienced for decades had trained me to doubt my instincts, but therapy and supportive relationships have restored confidence in my ability to identify healthy versus toxic behavior patterns. My career has flourished since establishing family boundaries. Without the constant financial drain and emotional stress of managing family crises, I've been able to focus fully on professional growth. Last month, I received a significant promotion to Regional Marketing Director, with a salary increase that finally allows me to pursue personal goals I'd deferred for years. Sarah and I recently became engaged, with wedding plans that prioritize our chosen family of close friends over biological relatives who might create drama or stress. This decision represents a profound shift from my previous assumption that family relationships must be maintained regardless of their impact on personal well-being. If you're dealing with financial exploitation from family members, please know that you're not alone and the situation isn't your fault. Setting boundaries with family can feel impossible when you've been trained from childhood to prioritize their needs over your own well-being, but it's both necessary and achievable with proper support. Consider seeking professional help from therapists who specialize in family financial abuse, as they can provide validation and practical strategies for protecting yourself while navigating complicated emotional terrain. Don't hesitate to consult with financial advisors and attorneys who can help you understand your legal options and recover stolen resources. Most importantly, remember that healthy families don't exploit their members financially or emotionally. If relatives are accessing your credit, manipulating you for money, or using guilt to control your financial decisions, those behaviors aren't expressions of love. They're forms of abuse that deserve direct confrontation and firm boundaries. Have you experienced financial manipulation from family members? How did you handle setting boundaries with relatives who felt entitled to your resources? What advice would you give to someone currently trapped in this situation? Please share your experiences in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more content about navigating toxic family relationships. Remember, you deserve relationships based on mutual respect rather than financial exploitation, and it's never too late to start prioritizing your own well-being.